You know, folks, in order to keep your audience's attention, it is really smart to put some very stunning visual effects into the mix. Now, it doesn't matter what genre you're using, but if you incorporate stuff like explosions and laser beams or even creatures of the night, you will make your production just that much better. Now, because of this, we've got one of the most prolific visual effects artists in the Maryland area with us here in the studio tonight, Mitch Klein. Mitch, glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Well, now let's start off with, how did you get into this? I mean, how did you professionally get into doing stuff for independent films?
Well, like a lot of people, I started as a kid doing Super 8 stop motion stuff and did some amateur shorts and all that kind of stuff, and then that kind of through friends led me to Don Dohler, who was then with Timewarp Films, and they got me on board after I sent them a reel, demo reel.
So what was that movie that you ended up being on back then?
The movie was Stakes. It was a 2002 vampire movie.
And what kind of effects?
A lot of glowing vampire eyes, vampire deaths, the flaming puff of smoke kind of stuff. And this one, they had a practical kind of like a Star Trek tricorder thing that had a holographic display.
Now, was that a physical prop?
Everything but the holographic stuff was physical.
So you had to add the visual screen to it.
Right. Basically, you had these points that you could follow because the guy was kind of moving it all around. And
what program did you do that in?
I used Adobe After Effects. There's a corner pinning function that you basically say, okay, I want the four corners here, and you just track them.
Okay. Well, was that the most difficult effect, or was there something?
I'd probably say the sheer amount of those was the most difficult. But some of the eyes were a little difficult because there were times the
glowing
vampire eyes.
Glowing eyes.
Well, because some of the shots, the lighting only was like one side of the face was lit, so you couldn't even see the other eye. But you still had to have a glow, so you had to avoid the Cookie Monster look.
What kind of a platform or software do you use? Are you using like just one type of software, or is this a bundle that you use in order to get some of these illusions done?
Well, the primary software I use is After Effects. That's independent filmmaker's dream, because you can do so much. It's kind of like Photoshop, but for movies, and it obviously has a lot more than just Photoshop. But you can do almost limited by your imagination. And I use that primarily. It's also fast. You can do a lot of stuff that it would take if you wanted to do in completely 3D CG. It would take a really long time. I mean, it obviously look really good, but with After Effects you can do certain things a lot faster.
Okay. Now, bringing up 3D, which you also do, you don't do that through After Effects. What kind of packages do you use there?
Back then I was using Lightwave. Currently I'm using Silo for modeling and Messiah for animation.
Okay. You finding those work pretty well for you?
Yeah, they do. They're really good oases in the desert, because they're affordable and they're really powerful. So it's good.
It's about the same type of learning curve over all of them. I mean, 3D has a learning curve to it.
Well, the same kind of learning curve. They're a little less. There's a little less out there about them. The really high-end stuff. People teach them in college, so you can find tons of information on them. These not as much, but good communities and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, your more recent work has been for Lee Dahl Film Productions. You've worked on, I think, about 2 of these for him. Yep. The first being the 3rd episode of Luana Lee, The Adventures of Luana Lee.
Yep.
And you had some explosions to do, or what exactly were the effects?
Well, when they approached me to do effects, they basically said, "What can you do?" And I said, "Well, hey, I could blow something up." So they like, okay. So they gave me a shot of a wide shot of a house and said, "What can you do with it?" So I, put in some nice camera shake and loud explosion and the fire coming out and the smoke and glass flying and all that. They're like, okay, yeah, we can do something with this. So they put that in the story. And
okay, so they did use that shot then.
They used that as a side because the house was actually supposed to be the family house. So it's like, why would you really blow up family house? So they changed the, they had it in the plot as a storefront, so I did a storefront as the actual story.
I've seen that shot, and it's very impressive. What can you tell us about that shot? I mean, what were the kind of challenges? It was a close-up shot.
Yeah, it was very close, so there wasn't a whole lot of room to work with doing stuff like camera shake and all that. I had to layer a lot of elements, because for these kind of things, I try to use pre-created, stock elements like fire and smoke and all first, and if I can use that. Otherwise, I go to computer-generated stuff. But I was able to use that. It's just I had to layer a whole lot of different lot of different stuff in.
Is this because the shot was relatively close instead of being further back? Or?
Right. Because I mean, the elements, they're HD, but they're meant to be somewhat distant, either distant or more intimate for like something like this kind of size.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, all in all, though, the shot does look really good because it's got a lot of detail in it.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And it was, I mean, obviously, the more time you had, the more detailed it could be.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they're in a quick turnaround, so I don't have weeks and weeks for a shot. I mean, I like to think that sometimes you can take one or two shots from a low-budget movie and say, these are going to be these shots, and I'm going to put a lot of time into those.
Right.
You don't always get that option.
No, no. Well, no, especially not in the indie
exactly.
area. So now, besides that, you've also worked on The Fixer, which is Lee Dahl's detective retro 70s action show.
Yep.
And you didn't do explosions for this one. What exactly was the type of effect that you did do?
It was sort of an electrostatic thing where the main character has some kind of amulet in his hand, and he touches the TV, and it sets off some kind of chain reaction. So there's like lightning, blue lightning all over the place, and then he gets pushed back and that sort of thing.
You hadn't been called in yet for this,
right? Yeah. I mean, it was all shot without my involvement, so I didn't know what I was going to get
right.
in terms of shots. I mean, it looked pretty good. There were some challenges. I mean, there was a lot of camera motion that made it challenging to find the right center for where the action, where things were happening, and sometimes if you're zooming in and moving the camera around, it's hard to track.
Is this something that would have been done easier had it been green screened, or?
It would have. It would have. I mean, part of it I probably wouldn't have even thought about necessarily up front, just for the reflective lighting. But when he gets pushed back, it's it's from you see his back. So basically, the effect has to be between him and the background. So that would have been a good green screen shot to do.
Well, let me ask you this then. As far as for filmmakers out there, especially indie filmmakers, what do you feel, how soon should they be bringing in the visual effects artists into the production, just to make it easier for everybody?
Well, ideally, I mean, being involved in the pre-production, also involved in the scheduling, because if you can schedule the shooting of the effects shots earlier, and get the footage to the effects guys, they can start on it earlier. Especially, I mean, storyboarding, because, I mean, basically with the Fixer shot with all the lightning, is I sort of wasn't sure what they were looking for, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so it was sort of like I saw a TV show and was like, hey, that may not be bad. So it's like, it was actually happened to be on YouTube, so like, hey guys, is this what you're looking for? And they're like, yeah, okay, so that's what I did.
Now the big news as of late is that you are back on the Timewarp film Crawler.
Crawler, the film that crawls to being finished.
The principal photography that was done by Don Doler and Joe Ripple was done back in 2003.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously it's a few years later now.
Yeah, just a few.
And, I mean, between that time, what kind of hurdles, what kind of roadblocks have you been running into, since this is such a CGI creature-heavy feature? There
were a lot of hurdles. I mean, one is it took me a year to find and learn the right kind of software to even get as far as I did. I mean, we had done a lot of the effects up through 2006 or 7. The technology has changed so much that I really want to redo a lot of it and use what I already did to kind of as a basis for moving forward. When you're getting a crew together of people that are volunteers, you you're subject to their schedules and what they can and can't do. And
now, correct me if I'm wrong, you have somebody helping you.
yeah, actually, I borrowed the effects artist from Justin Tim Payne's. He did Ninjas versus Zombies and Ninjas versus Vampires. And
okay.
His name's Brian Anderson.
Brian Anderson. No, I've seen
ADF Studios.
I've seen his work, and it's really good stuff. So between the both of you, not to give any false hopes or anything, when do you think we may be looking towards a finished project of Crawler?
It'll be done when it's done. But I can say that we're actively working on it, and we'll have it, we'll have it sooner than people may expect.
Okay, okay. Well, that's great. Now, Mitch, do you have a website that people can check out what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. Talesfromthecellar.com.
Okay.
I post about what I'm doing effects-wise, also news about the industry. I don't post that often. But,
little sample clips or?
Yeah, sometimes I've got some, like one of, I have it was from the Stakes DVD, the behind the scenes of creating a quick and dirty vampire death.
Okay.
Stuff like that. And I'm gonna put some more stuff up. So.
Well, hey, Mitch, thank you so much for being on Smash or Trash.
Sure, my pleasure.
And we hope to see more of your work, especially Crawler coming up. I think we're all going to be really relieved to see that, and good luck with that.
Thanks a lot.
So thanks. Now, coming up next on the show, we have two of the busiest actors in the Maryland area. That being Leanna Chamish and George Stover. Stay tuned.